I apologize. James was not able to make it today. So if you're wondering why I'm up here, he's back in Vancouver. But that being said, I will try to fill in for Jim, who's a legend in this business. My name is Pat Donnelly, and I'm the Vice President in Corporate Communications and Development for Trilogy Metals. And Trilogy Metals, we're based in Vancouver, Canada. We're listed on New York and on Toronto, and we own some of the highest grade copper zinc assets in the world. And I think we're unparalleled in terms of the quality of our projects. I'll just quickly flip through some of these forward-looking statements. I won't get too much into electric vehicles. I'm sure everybody here has their own opinion on them. That being said, the fundamentals for copper are absolutely outstanding. The average electric vehicle requires 200 pounds of copper. And obviously there's been a lot of noise the last few months on the Greta movement. My two sons were striking a few weeks ago in Vancouver, and we talk a lot about that at dinner time, about what's happening with the global environment. And for us to have a green economy, in order for us to move away from a carbon economy to a clean economy, we need copper, and we need a lot of it. And on top of that, just in general, copper supply is declining. We're seeing grades decline. We see mines getting deeper and deeper. Codelco has to spend, I think, $40 billion over the next few years just to maintain production. So even though we're seeing a lot of headwinds in the global economy, the fundamentals for copper are outstanding. And on top of that, you talk about the demand for electric vehicles and the concern for the global climate. So Trilogy, who are we? Like I said before, we're based in Alaska. We own a whole mining jurisdiction, the Upper Kobuk Mineral Projects. The two projects we're focusing on right now are Arctic. It's got over about 6 billion pounds of copper, 43 million tons of reserves of 5% copper equivalent. We're in Alaska. It's a great jurisdiction, a great place to do business, great support from the state government, the governor, great support from the United States government. Our other project, Bornite, located nearby, again, another 6 billion pounds of copper, has open pit resources of 125 million tons of 1%, and underground resources about 60 million tons of 3%. Arctic on its own has a net present value of $1.4 billion. So again, and I'll get more into that later, but it is simply the crown jewel of this company and one of the highest grade copper deposits in the world. Just a bit about our capital structure. We're listed in New York. Great shareholders. Electrum owns a big chunk. John Paulson, Baupost. South 32, which is an Australian company, owns 12%. And I'll talk more about that later, but they have an option to form a joint venture with us. And they have until the end of January next year to exercise that option. We're currently $26 million in cash US. We'll be down to about $20 million by the end of the year. That should last us 2 years. Largely institutionally held, about 70% of our shares are institutional, and most of them are domiciled in the United States. So just before I get into the assets, I'll talk about our partnerships. To get anything done in Alaska, you need firm, solid partnerships. The most important partnership we have is with NANA. They're a native corporation. They own the Red Dog mine, and the Red Dog mine is the second largest zinc mine in the world, and Teck is the operator. And it's a nice agreement. Teck operates the mine, and NANA, which is a multi-billion-dollar native corporation, they have a 35% net profits interest royalty. Over 60% of the employees at the Red Dog mine are Nup'ik Eskimo. So they have a very, very good arrangement. We're located in the Northwest Arctic Borough, which is similar to a county government. The government, the borough government, the schools, and the villages, most of their revenue comes from the Red Dog mine. Most of the taxes from the Red Dog mine stay in the borough. So people there understand mining. It's part of the culture. The Red Dog mine has been in operation for 30 years. So again, people understand the benefits of mining. The other partnership we have is with the Alaska Industrial Development Export Authority. That's an infrastructure bank owned by the state. Their mandate is to build infrastructure to create jobs. They build roads, ports, hospitals, and other infrastructure to build jobs. Currently, they're working with the Bureau of Land Management to permit a road to our project. The only reason this area we own has not been developed is because we need access. And so currently we're in the final stages of permitting of a 211-mile road from the Dalton Highway to our project. And we expect the final permits to be in place for this road by the end of this year. ADA will be involved, where they will finance the road, and we'll pay a toll to cover the cost of the road. So again, and the state and the government is firmly behind this. You can see we're going to truck concentrate. We're going to produce 3 concentrates, and then we truck down to Fairbanks, and then railed all the way down to Anchorage. Anchorage, the port is open all year round, so it's not iced up, and there's plenty of infrastructure available to move our concentrates. Our final partnership was with South32. They're an $8 billion market cap Australian company. We signed an agreement with them in 2017. They have until the end of January of next year to exercise their option. If they do that, they get a 50% interest in our assets, but they got to put in $150 million US into the joint venture. And we fully expect them to pull the trigger on that. Just more about the projects themselves. We own not just one project, we own a whole mining jurisdiction. We own the entire 70-mile-long Ambler mineral belt. It has numerous volcanogenic massive sulfide deposits, so it's very similar to what you see in northern Manitoba in the Flim Flam belt, very similar to what you see in the Iberian Pyrite belt in Spain. As I said before, we're focused on Arctic and Bornite. Arctic, 43 million tons of reserves at 5% copper equivalent. You don't see many projects like this anywhere around the world. The economics are simply outstanding. This is a pre-feasibility study results from 2018. We're currently working on a feasibility study that we'll have out by the end of the first quarter of next year. But just look at the feasibility study. Net present value after tax of $1.4 billion. This is a $3 copper. 12-year mine life, cash costs are 15 cents a pound. This thing would make money at $2 copper. All-in cost, 63 cents a pound. After-tax IRR, 33%. This project is simply outstanding, and that's just the first one we're working on. Along this belt, there are numerous other prospects and historical resources. We did some work at Sunshine earlier this year, and we drilled 6 holes, very similar grades to what we had at Arctic. We're also working at Bornite, which is across the valley. A little bit of a different beast. It's a carbonate-hosted copper deposit with cobalt, very similar to what you see in the African copper belt. It's hosted in dolomites. And here's our camp at Bornite. We drill from May to about September, but you could work all year there. Bornite, we have open pit resources, about 125 million tons at 1% copper, and underground resources of 60 million tons at 3% copper and growing. The money we received from South32, they had to put in $30 million to keep the option open for the joint venture. All that money has gone into the Bornite project. Lots of news flow coming, so we have more drilling results coming out from Arctic. As I said before, the big catalyst is the permitting of the road, which we expect to be completed early next year. South32 also has to decide on the option for a 50% interest in the joint venture by the end of January. We'll start permitting at Arctic early next year, and then the first quarter we'll complete the feasibility study in Arctic. Like I said before, we have plenty of cash. We'll have $20 million US in the bank. That should last us 2 years. So again, we're well financed, we don't need money, lots of catalysts, and a great asset that makes money in any price environment. Of all the charts on here in the presentation, I think this one's the most important. On the y-axis is copper equivalent grade. On the x-axis is billions of pounds of copper equivalent in resources. There's nothing else out there like us. All the other peers are low grade. They need a much higher copper price environment. We don't need that. So I compare Trilogy's assets very much to what Nevsun had in Serbia with Timok. So again, we got grade. Grade is king, and there's not much grade out there anymore. And specifically, grade in a very safe jurisdiction like Alaska. So I'll leave it at that. The bell just rung, and I'm happy to take any questions.
So for those assets, which ones can start at 32 farming?
The entire land package.
The entire land package?
Yes.
For the 100 million,
150 million US, yeah, and they have 50% interest. So what we'll do is we'll form a joint venture. The assets will go to a subsidiary. We'll own half, they'll own half, and there'll be a board of directors at that level, 4 people, 2 from Trilogy, 2 from South 32, and all the assets go into the subsidiary. Any other questions? Oh, very shy audience. Anyway, we're around today and tomorrow, and thank you so much for your time.